Welcome to PWS Connect, a podcast for the Prader-Willi syndrome community, brought to you by PWSA USA. This podcast gives the latest news in research, advocacy, and family support by bringing together staff, volunteers, PWS treatment specialists, biotech and pharmaceutical representatives, caregivers, family members, and individuals with PWS. Our goal is to connect education, awareness, and resources with those living with PWS and their supporters. Join us in our mission to enhance the quality of life and empower those affected by Prader-Willi syndrome.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our next Pulse episode featuring the wonderful Annie Fricke and myself, Carrie Ilovich. And Annie, it's so good to see you. You were gone for a few days last week doing something pretty incredible. Please tell us what you did.
Yeah, so Freya goes to a wonderful Waldorf-inspired school, so we get to do a lot of fun field trips. And last week we went on a backpacking trip. We drove east to the mountains a little bit, and we camped we ended up parking at like 6,000 feet. And then it was a 3-mile hike in, and Freya had her pack. We climbed a little bit in elevation, but she did the 3 miles in. We camped out. And then the next day we climbed to the top of Mount Eddy, which is a little over 9,000 feet. So that's a round trip 5-mile hike. And the top is switchbacks on a rocky slope, and it was almost a 2,000-foot elevation gain. And she did amazing. She made it there before I did. I had to end up taking a kid home back to camp who had a hurt foot or whatever. So she was up there when I got up there, and she just did fantastic. You know, I just always think, like, when she's there with her classmates, I remember, the hypotonia and just how much harder she has to work. But she did amazing. And then the next day, she had to put her pack back on and hike 3 miles out. And it was wonderful. And so I'm going to write up a spotlight about it and share some pictures because I'm really proud of her. So
I can't wait to see those.
So that's what I did. And then we spent the rest of the weekend recovering. Yeah. How was your weekend?
Mine was really good. I did absolutely nothing, and it was the best weekend ever. Sometimes we need those, Annie.
Absolutely. Yes, we do.
But hiking 10 plus miles sounds fantastic too. I would have loved to do that. But I'm so proud of Freya. She's done it multiple times now, and I'm just amazed by her. So go, Freya. Well, let's get into our Pulse newsletter here. This is volume number 106, and it was sent out on Friday, September 6th. And our spotlight for this Pulse was Newborn Screening Awareness Month, which is September. So rare diseases, including PWS, make up 6 to 8% of the global population. Patients with rare diseases frequently face a challenging odyssey to find timely and accurate diagnosis. Increasing the options of newborn screening programs is a key step for improving health outcomes for those living with rare diseases. Approximately 4 million babies are screened annually for at least 31 serious disorders that can be detected at birth. Newborn blood spot screening involves taking a small sample of blood to find out if your baby has one of about 28 rare health conditions. While newborn screening for Prader-Willi syndrome may be feasible and early diagnosis is critical to receiving valuable interventions and therapies, PWS is still not part of newborn screening. Some of the barriers to having PWS added to NBS may include budget, time, current genomic data, and prevalence of the condition. Genetic sequencing has allowed for individuals to receive earlier diagnosis. However, there is still advocacy that needs to be done. The testing for PWS is initiated when the individual meets the criteria of physical attributes and symptoms. This process may take months to years, during which time individuals miss valuable therapies and treatment, while their families lose access to resources and education to improve the quality of life for all. PWS parent Deanie Rao shared her family story of receiving a late diagnosis for her daughter and how the reliance on physical attributes and symptoms to diagnose individuals negatively affects families of color. And you can read Deanie's blog in our show notes. And I also encourage everyone, if you have not listened to it already, Deanie Rao and Janelle Conway spoke about the new BIPOC affinity group in one of our recent podcast episodes that Annie facilitated. So please go check that out if you haven't already. It is a great conversation. And just keeping on the same topic with Newborn Screening Awareness Month, Annie, can you remember back to, I know Freya's 12 now, so can you remember back to her diagnosis and when that happened, when she was diagnosed and what that process was like?
Yeah, I remember it very clearly. She was born in the hospital. She was supposed to be a home birth. And then there was a kind of a non-emergency cesarean. And we were in the hospital for 5 days because she struggled to feed, but then she gained enough weight because my milk came in and all that stuff. Anyway, so they sent us home and she started to lose weight. And she didn't get diagnosed till 3.5 months. And it was, I think that her pediatrician kind of had an idea before that, but just was kind of letting us be. And so I have mixed feelings about it. In some ways, I'm grateful. I feel like if she had been born in a hospital in a bigger town or in a bigger city, maybe they would have taken her. They would have taken her to NICU, would have put her on a feeding tube. And as valuable as that is at times for us, I'm glad. I'm glad that we got to go home with her. But those first few weeks, especially, were pretty terrifying because we didn't know what was going on. So that was really hard, that part. But she was home with us. And then eventually she was slowly gaining weight. You know, we were doing a lot to get her to gain weight. She definitely was diagnosed with failure to thrive. And then I remember that at one point the doctor suggested maybe it's time for genetic testing. And my husband and I, just being the whatever, like living off the land hippies, whatever. We were like, well, if it's genetic, then there's nothing we can do. So we'll just, as long as, she's healthy enough, we'll go home and we'll just be happy. And the doctor said, well, there's things like early intervention and treatments, which are fantastic. And he gave us the first example was, for example, people with Prader-Willi syndrome get started on growth hormone and it really can have a positive effect on their life. And we were like, well, what's Prader-Willi syndrome? So I realized in hindsight, he knew. He was an older doctor. And I think he was, just kind of letting us have our time with our daughter without a diagnosis. I am grateful for that time. I'm grateful that we had that, even as terrifying as it was, I'm grateful that we had that time to just be with her without all of the fears and the worries and the speculations that come with a diagnosis. Also, it is so critical that you get those early interventions. So, I mean, it was 3.5 months. So it was still pretty early. I would say it was still probably newborn, at that age. So yeah, that was my experience. So I have a lot of feelings around it. And I think it is so important to get, especially when you hear other stories, like hearing reading Deanie's story. Her daughter didn't get diagnosed, I think until like 5. So that's too long. We need to get those diagnoses a lot sooner than that. So.
Absolutely. And that's why this month and raising awareness for it is very important all over, the country, the world, and especially for our community who needs it. It's critical. But thank you for sharing that story, Annie. I did not know that. What a unique story.
I think so. Yeah.
A lot of the stories I've heard are typically about, being in the hospital, going to the NICU, but you're able to have Freya home during those first few weeks and have those, precious infant moments on your couch. And I just haven't heard that story yet. So that's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah. Well, if we ever do if we ever go more in depth, I can talk about how I got a little cuckoo around trying to figure out what was going on. And it was, doing the like rebirth ceremony that I did for her and crocheting a cervix and all the kooky stuff I did.
Very Annie, very on point with Annie. Well, thank you for sharing nonetheless.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to the spotlight on hope. And I definitely encourage people to check out the post. We'll put this out in a post, but these are really adorable pictures of Ramsey. And here's what his parents had to say. Ramsey has a smile that can light up the whole state of Kentucky. He has 3 older sisters who encouraged him to move and play, helping Ramsey to beat the odds and walk at 14 months old. That is impressive.
Wow. Yes.
He loves to dance, flirt with brunettes, and gives the best hugs. Ramsey never gives up and inspires everyone around him to keep going. We can't wait to see this little man's bright future ahead. And when you look at these pictures and see the cute little suspenders and the glasses and the smile, he is such a cutie. So thank you so much, Ramsey's family, for sharing that spotlight.
I want to meet him so bad. Moving on to some of our events and fundraisers currently happening and upcoming. We first want to discuss the United in Hope 2025 International PWS Conference, which you will hear a lot about between now and next June. So be prepared, just a fair warning. A big part of this that Annie and I are really trying to get out is getting people aware of and submissions for our Rare Aware Art Share, which is now in its second theme. And this theme focuses on asking individuals with PWS to create artwork that showcases something unique about where they live. And this is actually going to be the focal point of our conference decor at the Arizona Grand Resort and Spa. And we really encourage everyone out there to encourage their children, their loved ones to submit artwork for this initiative and have these pieces showcased at the conference. We really want to capture, especially because it's an international conference, something unique about where people live all over the world. And we have gotten some pretty incredible artwork submissions so far for this.
Yes.
But we always need more because there's a lot of space in this resort and we really want to fill it up. So, but to give a little context around some things that people have submitted so far, it can be from mountains that are in your home state or city or country. It can be flowers outside of your home. It can just be some beautiful colors and patterns that reflect the culture where you live. Someone even submitted a very detailed and very beautiful cityscape of where they live in India, which I thought was amazing.
I
And
love that
Annie,
one.
I know I saw
It's
that and I was
incredible.
mind blown. So, and a little caveat to this, our submission deadline for this artwork is September 15th. So it's coming up very quick. It's on Sunday. So please submit artwork by then if you can. And we will have this artwork actually showcased on our website, PWSA's website, and on our social media throughout November and after this deadline period. So we'll make sure that we're showcasing it online as well as at the conference. So you'll be able to see it. But Annie, I know that Freya has submitted artwork for our first theme, which is what is your superpower? And that was beautiful. And she's also now submitted artwork or, an artistic piece for our theme too. Can you give a little bit of context around what she did? Because I think it's amazing.
So this time she wrote a poem about redwoods because we live in Northern California where we have the redwoods. So that's pretty unique. So she wrote a poem and I do have a recording of it. I'll share a little bit here after this. She is going to make an art piece. She's going to draw a redwood on the poem to display it. But at the bottom, she did write a little thing about thank you for reading my poem about the two redwoods in my backyard because we do have two redwoods in our yard, which coming from Indiana feels very special. So,
Yes.
Oh, to the redwoods. Oh, Edwards, why do your branches grow out? Oh, Edwards, why is your trunk so high up in the sky? Oh, Edwards, why do you have lines like waves that are smooth when I touch it with my bare hands?
there's all kinds of ways that people can express themselves, and we do just need a picture of it. So if it's a statue or a painting or, song lyrics, we've had song lyrics before, we've had jewelry. We just love to see it. So anything that your loved one wants to use to show, to represent where they come from, we definitely love to see it.
Yes, we can't wait for more submissions in the near future here. And we will have a theme 3, and we will give details about that very soon, but it does have to do with your favorite birthday memory. So more details to come on that one. But for now, please send in artwork for the what is unique about where you live. We appreciate it so much. And in keeping with our 2025 PWS conference decor theme here, we are also collecting photos for a special mural project. This mural is going to showcase the diversity and beauty of our incredible PWS community, and it will be on display during the conference at the Arizona Grand Resort and Spa. We want photos of your loved one to be part of it. You can submit a picture of your PWS warrior at the link found in our show notes, and even if you can't join us in person, we encourage you to share a photo. The picture shared will help create a display of hope that everyone can take pride in. So let's come together to celebrate and inspire. And finally, we want to share that our 2025 conference hotel rooms are filling up fast. So if you're planning to attend the conference, don't wait. Book your stay at the Arizona Grand Resort and Spa as soon as possible. 55% of the rooms are already reserved for the conference dates, and availability is limited. In addition, there is no double queen rooms left for June 21st and only king rooms remaining on June 22nd. You can reserve now and cancel up to a week before the event without any charges, and you won't be billed until check-in. Secure your room now and ensure your spot at this exciting event. You can book your stay at the link in our show notes. Moving on to a different conference that PWSA USA just hosted, our first ever residential providers conference was a huge success. We held it August 18th through 20th, both virtually via Zoom and in person in Savannah, Georgia. The hotel, the area was just stunning everywhere. The event offered a variety of lectures and workshops where more than 100 professionals from around the country met to share their knowledge and experiences. We are so grateful and inspired by the people who choose to step in and care for our loved ones with PWS when they move into residential facilities. Your knowledge and dedication help our loved ones live independently, healthy, and happy lives. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about PWS and how to help our loved ones thrive. And Annie, I was not able to be there in person, which I was very sad about, but I did a lot of work leading up to this. And part of the registration process for this conference was asking the people registering what they believe their superpower is in terms of working with PWS individuals. And some of these superpowers submitted were very impactful, and it's amazing how just one word can really resonate and make you feel, that individuals with PWS are being fully cared for and just fully loved by these people. So I wanted to share a couple of the superpowers that were shared with us. Motivating, nurturing, problem solving, inspiring possibilities, seeing the potential, a sense of humor, caring, creative, and compassionate. And we had 100 of these superpowers submitted. So that's just a few, but that was beautiful and powerful. So
yeah, I love those. I'd love to see those in like a word cloud or something.
yes, we can make that happen.
Yeah, love it.
All right. And then moving on to some peer-to-peer fundraisers. So these are events that are put on by community members. Before I get into our upcoming one, that's happening next month, I wanted to give a shout out to the Gill family. They just hosted their first annual Gavin Gill Classic Golf Tournament this past Saturday. And to my understanding, it was a very big success. It was held in Massachusetts, and Joe Gill is a sibling, a PWS sibling, and his brother Gavin has PWS. So Joe is someone who people may have heard of already, but he ran the Boston Marathon a couple of years ago and raised over $40,000 for PWSA from just that run. So I can't imagine, all of the work and effort and time and energy that went into a full event hosted by Joe, but I know that it went very well, and we can't wait to share a recap from that event. So
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe and family.
Yes, thank you. That's incredible.
I know. I'm always blown away by that guy. He's the coolest. So an upcoming fundraiser, though, that we have is Answers for Audrey Trivia Night. This is for all of our Missouri residents out there or those in surrounding states that can make the drive. Don't miss the 4th annual Answers for Audrey Trivia Night on Saturday, October 12th at the Incarnate Word Academy in Belle Noire, Missouri. This is hosted by Michelle Spring and her family. And the special event kicks off with doors opening at 6:30 p.m. and trivia starting at 7 p.m. Michelle's daughter, Audrey Rose, was diagnosed with Prader-Willi syndrome in 2020, and the proceeds from this event will support both Audrey's medical needs and PWSA USA, which Michelle says has provided invaluable support to her family. And you can register for this great event at the link in our show notes.
And we will also include a link in our show notes for anyone who is interested in hosting their own PWS Hope United event in their town or their city or wherever it is. So if you're interested in hosting your own event, if you have some ideas, check out the link in the show notes and you can get in touch with us. So moving on to advocacy, we'd first like to just announce some exciting news that PWSA USA has been selected as a 2024 Rare Is Global Advocate Grant recipient. And this is from the Rare Is program from Amgen Biopharmaceutical. The Rare Is Global Advocate Grant was established in 2022 to support the rare disease community by providing financial assistance to global advocacy groups working to advance, educate, and address the needs of the community. We're motivated to continue making a positive impact for the rare disease community by expanding our efforts in Prader-Willi syndrome education and advocacy as we work to address the needs of all those impacted. And if you'd like to learn more about the Rare Is grant, there will be a link in the show notes. And we just want to say how grateful we are to be a recipient of this grant. We'd also like to announce some very exciting news about DCCR. The FDA has announced its plan to conduct an advisory committee meeting as part of its review of Soleno Therapeutics' DCCR new drug application. For those who are new to DCCR, if you haven't heard yet, this is a potential treatment to treat hyperphagia, which is the excessive hunger that comes with PWS. So the FDA convenes advisory committees to provide independent expert advice that contributes to the agency's regulatory decision-making. As part of the advisory committee meeting, interested community members are encouraged to share their views. A date has not yet been announced for the meeting, but we expect it to be held toward the end of the review process, which has a target completion date of December 27th, 2024. So this is some really exciting news in the PWS community. And I know a lot of families are really hoping that we get this treatment and that we can move forward with this.
Absolutely. It's been a long road with DCCR, as many know, but we see the end in sight. December is going to come really quickly, and there's going to be a lot that happens in between now and December, a lot of information that we'll share out. So make sure that you're looking at PWSA social media accounts and our website for continued updates, and we'll continue to provide them as well in our Pulse newsletter and here on the podcast. All right, moving on to some family support news now. We have a new PWS in Adulthood blog series article that's titled Creating a Safe Home. What does it look like to create a home for your adult with PWS who lives independently from you? PWS parent Nancy Kristoff shares how her family makes it work for her daughter Nicole. From the role of administration manager, filled by Nancy herself, to the various personal care assistants, she breaks down the designated duties that each role takes on. She also discusses the two main daily issues, Nicole's trust and innocence, and her ability to access food from external sources and how these are managed. For parents wondering about options for their loved one as they age, here is another example of what a living situation could look like. And Annie, I know that we want to continue this blog series. They are so incredible, all these articles that we've been given about PWS and adulthood. And everyone, by the way, can go and read Nancy's article at the link in our show notes. But Annie, what are some other topics of interest, and how can people continue to help us post about this series or PWS and adulthood?
Yeah, well, we are accepting any information, wisdom, experiences from parents of older individuals or caregivers of older individuals living with PWS. But I put out some questions just to help people kind of think of some ideas to go over. I mean, certainly if you have your own experience, you don't have to cover all of these questions, or if you already have an idea. But if you are someone who is caregiving or the parent of someone who's older and needs some help, here are some of the questions that I've put out. What do people need to know or do as their loved ones head into adulthood? What do you look for in a residential home or caregiver for your adult? Do they have a job or go to college? And if so, what does that look like? Are they in a romantic relationship? And if so, what does that look like? Certainly the topics or what you talk about don't have to be confined by these questions. These are just to help you get some ideas. But we really want to continue this blog. It's so incredibly helpful. And I think it's great always for parents to share their stories and for other parents to hear the story. So if you're interested in sharing, you can email me at africke@pwsausa.org, and I will include that email in the show notes. So yeah, we'd love to hear it. So please feel free to share.
Thank you, Annie. And we've seen so many wonderful comments to these posts that have already been put out about the blog this series. So we look forward to continuing it and seeing more reactions of this. Since the beginning of 2024, we have put on a webinar as part of our family support webinar series every month. And we have an upcoming one for this month on September 17th. That's a Tuesday. And it's going to be at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, with the topic of friendship and beyond, navigating relationships and sexuality in PWS with speaker Patrice Carroll. The session on friendships, relationships, and sexuality will focus on the unique challenges that people with PWS face in forming and maintaining friendships, as well as navigating their sexuality. Discussions will center around healthy relationships, addressing social deficits, and creating an appropriate education in relation to sexuality. An emphasis will be on the importance of effective education, communication, and the dignity of risk. And you can register for that webinar in our show notes. And speaking of family support webinars, we do have our recent August family support webinar recording ready to be viewed, which was the individualized health plan for students with PWS. And that was with guest Dr. Destiny Pasha. You can also find the recording to that link and also her presentation notes in our show notes as well. And I know, Annie, that Freya has started school not too long ago, and I thought this would be a great opportunity as we're kind of talking about school to see how she's doing and what that transition kind of is like going back from summer to school days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's doing great. Things are going smoothly so far. You know, there will be a change in the classroom aid, which is something that, is always some upheaval, some change, just as the aid that she has had. And it's not a one-on-one, which is a whole other issue of, how do you get a one-on-one? I haven't figured that out yet. But there is a classroom aid that is a little more focused on Freya than some of the other classmates. But so that's coming up. We'll be dealing with that here soon. They're still trying to figure out who that aide is. So, all the joys of having a child in school who needs extra services, but otherwise everything else is going great so far.
Good. I love to hear it. One more question about Freya in this family support section for you, Annie. So this past weekend, it was National Grandparents' Day. A shout out to all the amazing grandparents in our PWS community. But I know that your family took a trip to visit your mom, Freya's grandma, in Indiana not too long ago. And I wanted to ask if there is something that specific that Freya loves about visiting with her grandma or grandparents in general, and have her give a little shout out through you.
Yeah, so we went to Indiana to visit my parents, so Freya's grandma and her grandpa, and we had a great time. And my dad loves to build fires, and we sit out in the backyard around the fire, and it's just pretty mellow. We like to go on some walks and stuff. So Freya loves that. She also loves that, which I think happens maybe in a lot of families, which can be frustrating sometimes. But, the diet is a little different when we're in Indiana. And so it's something that I fought against a lot. And now I just accept, okay, it is what it is for these 10 days that we're here. And then when we get back home, we will be a lot more careful. So that's actually, I think, one of Freya's favorite things about going is that there is a Dairy Queen in Indiana and there is not one in California, thankfully. But yeah, she loves spending time with her grandparents. And it's always sweet to go and just hang
Spend
out with
some
them.
quality time. Yeah. I know that many other individuals with PWS and their parents also had a lot of amazing things to say about their grandparents in their life. And we received many submissions from the PWS community highlighting and celebrating their grandparents. And we actually put them all in a blog post on our website. And we encourage everyone listening to go and read through those because they are wonderful and they're accompanied by lovely photos. So we encourage you to take some time to read through those at the link in our show notes.
So we're going to head up to the Ask Nurse Lynn submission. And Carrie, as I was putting this together, I'm just going to read the question. But as I was putting this together and putting the response up, and thinking about the podcast, I was chuckling to myself because I was thinking that we would have to read Nurse Lynn's response as well. And I was thinking of a way to make sure that you had to read it because there's a lot of big words in it, but even in just the question. So I'll read the question. And then if you want to read Nurse Lynn's response, if this question is a question that you have, there will be a link in the show notes. But the question is for a 25-year-old male with an unknown subtype. And the submitter says, my son, age 25, was previously taking propanol for blood pressure and anxiety. We were noticing increased anxiety, and PCP just switched him to lisinopril and Venlafax ER75. Are these two medications found to be safe for patients with PWS? Side note, I might have mispronounced those medications. I've never heard of them, but you can go
We
to
do our best.
Yeah, you can go to the link in the show notes and read Nurse Lynn's educated response and learn more about that. So now we're going to go to the research section, and our first call is for abstracts for the 2025 International PWS Conference, which again will be held next June in 2025. So the abstract submission process is open for the International PWS Conference, Clinical and Scientific Program, and the Professional Providers and Caregivers Program. You can read more information about how to apply by using the link in the show notes. Our United in Hope International PWS Conference will shape the future of PWS care and research. This 5-day event marks the first joint conference between IPSO, PWSA USA, and FPWR and symbolizes a historic milestone. So with these call for abstracts, the Professional Providers Program submission deadline is November 5th, 2024, and the Clinical and Scientific Program submission deadline is January 31st, 2025. Again, the links to those are in the show notes. So this next one is coming up quick. So if you're not listening to this podcast on the day that we're putting it out, you may miss it. But again, there will be recordings. But the next one is Wednesday, September 11th at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. And this is with speakers Roxanne Diaz-Gross and Anne Scheinman. And this topic is on feeding and swallowing. And this presentation will enhance the knowledge of PWS assessment and management, focusing on feeding and swallowing issues through a multidisciplinary approach. And this is for providers only. This is not for parents, though parents will be able to watch the webinar recording when it's done. So if you would like to if you're not a provider, let your provider know. And also at the link in the show notes, we'll have the other upcoming webinars if you'd like to learn what those are. We also had a webinar for the VNS for PWS clinical trial, and this was co-hosted with FPWR. And this webinar was for families to learn more about the VNS for PWS clinical trial. VNS for PWS is a phase 3 clinical trial evaluating the effectiveness of a vagus nerve stimulation device for improving disruptive behaviors and temper outbursts for people with PWS. If your loved one is between the ages of 10 and 40, you may be eligible to participate. So here's a brief summary of key takeaways and resources discussed during the webinar. First bullet point, that this trial is assessing whether a wearable device decreases temper outbursts and challenging behaviors. 2, that the device should be worn for 4 hours per day, and these 4 hours do not need to be consecutive. 3, this is a phase 3 trial and is currently enrolling individuals with PWS ages 10 through 40. And 4, in order to qualify for this study, you cannot be participating in any other study. So if you have any questions or need further information, you can reach out to info@pwsausa.org, or you can visit using the link in the show notes. You can visit the FPWR website, and we'll have that link in the show notes. One more, in the research section, Harmony Biosciences opens a new clinical trial site in Colorado. So Harmony Biosciences Tempo study is a global phase 3 trial investigating pitolisant as a potential treatment for excessive daytime sleepiness in individuals aged 6 years and older with PWS. Pitolisant is a medication that could help manage sleepiness and behavioral issues in people with PWS, and you can find all 12 Tempo trial site locations at the link in our show note. The new trial site is in Aurora, Colorado, at the Colorado Children's Hospital. And if you'd like to learn more about the Tempo trial and the site locations, you will find that link in the show notes.
Yeah, Annie, there's so many great opportunities out there. A lot of clinical trial studies open at this point for individuals with PWS to be a part of, and a lot of locations popping up around the country, around the world, even in some cases. So we do have a clinical trials webpage on our PWSA USA website as well. And that gives kind of an overview of all of the current trials going on and all of the drugs in trial right now. So if you want even more details about all of the drugs in trial at this point, I encourage you to go look at that webpage on our website. And to close out this Pulse newsletter, we put out a resource spotlight for everyone to know about. We are proud to offer a dedicated PWS Clinics webpage on our website, providing a valuable resource for families seeking specialized care for loved ones with PWS. This comprehensive directory includes clinics across the country that are equipped to offer expert guidance and support for individuals with PWS. Whether you are looking for medical care, therapies, or nutritional advice, our PWS Clinics page connects you to trusted professionals who understand the unique needs of the PWS community. You can visit our website at the link in our show notes, and this is also not to be confused with the clinical trials webpage I just mentioned. This is just a PWS Clinics webpage, two separate things. And Annie, I would love to start ending these Pulse newsletters. I know we do a spotlight on hope in all of them, which always shares a great story or quote from families, but you and I are very connected to the community, obviously, with our roles and just in day-to-day life. So I would love to end it with a mission moment from one of us going forward. And I know that you have a great one to share this time around, so I'm going to let you take it away and share your mission moment.
This goes back to the PWS in Adulthood blog series that just kind of came from this, a few months ago, from this idea of like, oh, we should have more, which is an ongoing conversation, of course, about how can we represent the entire community? How can we represent more adults with PWS? And a lovely volunteer, Elaine, reached out to some parents and she got some great blog posts that came in. And so I've been putting those out once a month. And with that, I've been asking for more blog posts from parents. And so I'm starting to get emails from other parents, and they want to share their story of their 30-year-old, their 40-year-old, and also putting it up on social media and then seeing the comments that people are coming in with. They're sharing people are expressing their gratitude for having a vision of what the future can look like. Like I said before, as the mother of a 12-year-old, we're not to adulthood yet, but I'm starting to learn like, it is something you have to start thinking about because it does look a little different when you have someone with PWS. So I'm just really grateful for all of the parents that are and the caregivers who are sharing what it looks like, their experiences. And so that us younger parents can just kind of have a heads up and know how to prepare and see that there are a variety of ways that our loved ones can have their independence, their interdependence, whatever that looks like for them. So I'm just grateful and really excited to be a part of getting it out there and sharing it with the community and seeing all the positive responses. So
I love that. It has been a very well-received blog series that we've done in recent months, years, I would even say. So we appreciate everyone's contributions and involvement with this series. And again, we look forward to continuing it, and we continue to look for more people to be interested. So reach out to us.
thanks for taking the time to listen to the news and the update and the advocacy and all the things that are happening with PWSA and going on in the PWS community. And we appreciate everybody participating where you participate and just helping spread awareness and education and community. Thank you for listening to this episode of PWS Connect. We invite you to continue the conversations on our PWS Connect Discord channel. You can find the link to join in our show notes. If you would like to learn more about Prader-Willi syndrome and how PWSA USA is making strides in advocacy, family support, and research, please visit www.pwsausa.org. While you're there, we encourage you to sign up for our Pulse email newsletter to stay informed about the latest news, resources, and events. Don't forget to subscribe to the PWS Connect podcast so you never miss an episode. Our team is always available to support families and their loved ones living with PWS. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, you can call us at 941-312-0400 or email info@pwsausa.org. Catch a new episode next Tuesday, and until then, have a great week.